Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome along to the Sea Live podcast. My name is Sam, and as always, it wouldn't be a Sea Live podcast if I didn't have my trusted friend and podcast sidekick, Mr. Christopher Barnes.
Hey, how are you, mate?
I'm well. Are you?
You had a busy
Yeah,
day?
I'm well. I'm well. Are you, mate? Are you up to any much this week?
Oh, I've been painting again.
Painting, guitar lessons, stripping the
Oh,
walls.
it's been, well, just stripping the walls.
I've seen that your kitchen's finished, which is very nice.
Yes, I finally, after, 18 months with no kitchen, last lockdown, obviously, no roof, no sink, no livable. So it's been a nice week. Finished the kitchen and happy days.
Excellent. And we are coming up to a year of doing the Sea Live podcast, which is unbelievable.
I think who'd have thought we'd be still talking to these amazing people after a year and still pulling in these coups. We've got a major Liverpool legend on tonight, and who'd have thought we'd have pulled all these amazing people in a year on?
It's baffling, to be fair. I sometimes pinch myself, to be fair. When you tell me who we've got on, so I've just shown you a little bit of him there, so let's get him introduced. It's Mike Badger, ladies and gentlemen. Hey! How are you doing, Mike? All well?
I'm good, yeah. I'm always good, you know. Yeah.
Great to be, and I've got to say we've all through this year I've had my camera on tiles, on guitar cases, on amps. What have you got your camera on tonight?
It's a 12-year Glenfiddich single malt carton. Yeah.
To be fair, I think it's the most sturdy camera prop that we've had out of all of our guests. I was using PS4 games for mine back in the day. I think on the first and second podcast I was using like stacked PS4 games, and I've got a nifty little LED stand, so I'm proud. We're moving up in the world.
You've got it. No, you've got a nice office chair as well now, so you're all right.
It's all about the ergonomical. Mike, where do we start with your career? Because we can ask the cliche questions of who inspired you as a young man, as an artist, and we could ask that question now. Who inspired you growing up?
Well, oh God, it's such a massive question, really. I mean, I've always really loved music. I've always connected with it, and my dad was very vocal. Even though he was very shy, he would never get on a stage or nothing, but he was always singing, and so he used to sing to us going to sleep at night. So I suppose it was a lot of American tunes which he sang to us. And then obviously, I was born in 1962, so the wallpaper was the Beatles and the whole of the 60s, and then as you get a bit older, in the 1970s, my sister was got records before me because she was older, so she was getting all the great glam rock singles from the 1970s, and so and then it went on from there, really.
And did you learn an instrument when you were a child, or did this?
No, I did get a guitar when I was about 14 or something, Spanish guitar from Hesse's, but I couldn't tune it, so it never sounded any good, So I just left it there, and it was kind of left to rot. And, well, actually, it's a funny story about that guitar, which is I'll just throw in. The person who bought it off me was a fella called Rick Zigman, who now has the premier guitar shop in Kings Road, Rick's Guitars, Yeah, and that he was in school with me, Yeah, so he, that Spanish guitar was one of the first guitars he bought.
I wonder if he's got it in a case somewhere on the wall. Oh, I guess he might have.
It's a very, very long time ago. Yeah, so.
and obviously later on you were inspired to write songs, and was that something that came easy to you, or was it something you had from a child, or did you like to write?
I started with the words, you know. I mean, I wasn't very good at school. Well, I probably was, you know, I wasn't dim, but I didn't get any qualifications. No, I wasn't particularly academically minded, or should I say, their teaching method wasn't compatible with who I was, you know. Um, so but I did one day get a real shock when I wrote this poem for homework, and I did what I normally did, which was write it as fast as I could to get it out, done with, and then get out in the street, you know. And then when I got my homework back, the teacher held it up in front of the class and said, you know, this is exceptional, and I got a distinction for it, and I was just like, well, you know, I just kind of knocked it out in 2 minutes so I could get out the house. And then I kind of went, and that's all I needed then was a bit of encouragement that actually, you know, you can do this, you know. And then, so I started writing creatively before I got into the music. I was writing poems, you know, slagging off Scallies and Barry and all that, you know, doing as you do, you know, being an angry young man and you know, trying to do it with a bit of humour as usual. But, and then I sort of started performing my poems on stage first, and then you know, realised eventually I want to do music and put getting a band together, you know.
That's where I think that's where you always start. I started my career with poetry, as Sam knows. This is well, yeah, but mine was a I don't know if you know this story, Mike. When I won BBC Young Poet of the Year, little Scouser.
Wow. Fantastic.
Well, it was fantastic until they realised that I'd copied it out of another book.
I'll take all that back then.
No, but it goes on. It goes on where he's invited down to London and he gets the prize money, don't you?
It went feral, and then obviously I had to go and read it on Radio 4 Broadcasting House, and I turned up this little Scouser and all these posh kids from all over the country, and I had like an AC/DC t-shirt on or something, and and he must have known. Oh, and then it all came out, and then they tried to sue me. The BBC tried to sue me, and then that was the end of my poetry career. So I choose a career. So yeah, we have similar poetry past and musical past, but not as anything near as kind of the creative things that you've done over the years. We'll touch on it briefly. That you said you wanted to start a band, and obviously people know that you started one of the most famous bands in Liverpool. The records still sell today, and they still put things out. What was that your inspiration to create that kind of jingly jangly Liverpool style band, or what was the inspiration behind it? Was
not at all, really. The thing was, I was kind of wasn't really into the 50s as much. I'm sorry, the 60s as much as I was the 50s, right? Yeah. And also by the time I started the band, you talking about the Lars, which was about 84, 85, you know, and I'd really got into like rockabilly music and very raw, primal rock and roll, rhythm and blues. And also, you know, coming from a punk rock background, going to Eric's, and I was really into high octane, incendiary, you know, rock and roll and that, you know, rather than like, you know, the Byrds or the Turtles or the Kinks, or, you know, because I mean, I liked all that stuff, but it just didn't resonate with me as hard as the other stuff, you know. And so then when I started writing with Lee, of course, a lot of his stuff, although, you know, I knew him from a punk band in Huyton, you know, before we started working together, it was, he was really, really had this very well-formed way of, you know, writing, which was obviously inspired by a lot of like classic 60s stuff, but I think particularly the Kinks and the Who and that, you know. So before that, being a little bit more punk rock and rockabilly, and like, because he was a great rock guitarist as well, phenomenal, you know, as well as being like a great singer-songwriter. You know, he was a great musician, great bass player, could do the lot, you know.
Yeah.
So his song started coming in, and then we were co-writing for a while together, and it all worked, you know. And then we took Liverpool, which was something I was really, really proud of. You know, right in the heart of Thatcherism. You know, that was like a real. No one can ever take that from me. You know, we did that.
Yeah.
We were the thing in Liverpool in '86. It took, you know, a year or two to get going, but you know, but we did that. But then, you know, you say about the jingly jangly thing, that was very much more kind of what it's associated with, you know, now. And but that's more like kind of Lee's influence, the '60s kind of thing there, you know. It's interesting actually because John Peel played My Girl Sits Like a Reindeer, which was one of our early kind of funky, discordant rockabilly, a bit more like The Fall or something like that, you know. And he never played anything by the Laws after that, because I'm sure he would have seen it as being too kind of. He always liked something which was a bit different, a bit cutting edge, and although Lead kind of and the Laws, we were kind of doing it in a very, very kind of you know, refined way, you know. It was, but I don't think he got it. Of course, all the mainstream DJs loved it then, you know, but because it was so accessible and it was just, you know, great music.
And then they obviously had the big hit, There She Goes, which kind of got them a bit of national sort of recognition then, and then obviously that the rest is history then. But do you still kind of speak to Lee Mathers and stuff like that? But do you still keep in touch?
Been to each other from time to time, you know, and we're always very affectionate, but we don't really hang, you know. So,
But things move on in music, as you say, and influences change. And obviously your influence with the bluegrass, and then you joined the Onset. You formed on the Onset.
Right, yeah. It was kind of well, after the Laws, I just kind of you know, it didn't work out for the two of us. There was too much dynamics from both of us, I suppose, at that time, you know. And it worked and it bounced for a while, but you know, this happens a lot in bands, you know. It just kind of didn't happen in that way for me to progress with it. So I've already been working with a guy called Danny Dean on the Scheme, where I'd met John Power and got John in the band. And Tommy Scott was on that Scheme as well. Again, it was a great kind of dynamic time. And then we got a guy called Simon Cousins started playing bass. So then I had a guitarist and a bass player, and then we had a few different drummers, and we ended up with Tony Russell, who played for a stint in the Lars, you know, and then Paul Hemmings joined after he had left the Lars. So it was kind of like, this is where all the ex-Lars went, you know. And it was kind of, you know, at that time, it was like, you know, I mean, there's been so many past Lars members now. I don't, you know, I don't even get any like credence from being in them. It's like, you know, who wasn't, you know. but you know, it was great times. And the Onset, then we got a deal with Jeff Davis and Probe Records quite quickly, and they were riding high with Half Man Half Biscuit, you know.
Yeah.
So you know, classic, brilliant band. So we were doing loads of like support with the Biscuits and playing to all these packed houses, and Jeff liked us because we weren't that '60s kind of Liverpool thing, and we did have very much our kind of roots in like Americana, you know. And you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, country music in Liverpool's got an incredible pedigree, going back a long, long, long time, because we were getting the records before everybody else, you know. And so I knew Jeff from the shop. He was like, I'd go in and ask for like Nina Simone or Count Basie or something like that, because I'd read it in like a Captain Beefheart interview or something, you know. So he would always engage with me, because I wasn't buying the records that the other kids were buying, you know. And he was interested in the fact that I was into like a bit more kind of obscure kind of maybe rhythm and blues and jazz stuff and whatever, you know, that kind of rootsy side thing. But yeah, bless his cotton socks, Jeff put an album out, and that opened lots of doors for us, you know. And then we went on, you know, toured around Europe, and I had a great time. People knew us more in Europe than they did in Liverpool.
Yeah. It's Jeff's name pops up so many times on these podcasts. We had Paul Capper on last week, and obviously Jeff with Capper and the band that he was in, Simon Bradshaw, and he was in Marlowe, and I know Noel Burke, who was in St. Vitus Dance. I've stepped in for
talented, great songwriter.
He's a great friend, Noel Burke. I've done a few things with Noel over the years, and we were writing a few new tunes, and it kind of just fell off the map with Noel. And but it is what it is, and Jeff's name always comes back. Always comes. People always talk about Jeff and how important Probe was to Liverpool in sort of the late 80s, early 90s, and the influence.
Show just on Jeff Davis and the anecdotes, you know, honestly. So yeah, I've got to be careful, because I'll go down that rabbit hole, you know. And, his advance for the second, when he reissued the Pool of Life album on CD, because you know CDs weren't around when we actually released that album. It was just LPs and cassette, and I still got a few in the attic, and then not the LPs, they all sold out, but I got some of the cassettes. But then when we redid that album, and we did some new tracks for it, and he came in with a Kinder Egg to the band, to the rehearsal. You know, that's your advance, like that. And then he said, "But I'm keeping the toy for Zach, his little boy, you know." So we didn't even get the toy inside.
That sounds like what we need to be. Sam, next rehearsal when we play, I'll bring you a Kinder Bueno, because I know you like them.
Oh, don't get me started on Kinder Bueno. Oh, I love them. Are you a chocolate? I'm going to go rogue with this question. Are you a chocolate fan, Mike? What's the go-to chocolate for you? What's in your cupboard at the minute?
God, you know, I did actually grab a bar of whole nut before off the shelf when I was in the shop. I couldn't resist. Yeah. I quite like the crunchy texture, you know, with bits in chocolate. But I really don't like soft sensors. I like, if I had a box of chocolates, my favorite number one go-to would be a hazelnut swirl.
Oh, yeah. Today in our house.
I'm just that kind of guy.
Bit nutty.
Yeah.
I always get left. No one likes the soft ones. So I that's what I scoffed. But I'm doing no chocolate, aren't I, for Lent? So I'm struggling a bit at the moment. So all this chocolate talks, it's quite hard. But that's what we were talking about the Liverpool music scene. What was it like to be in that early 90s, late 80s, early 90s scene around Liverpool? Was it just another level of creativity to other cities? What was it like to be involved in that circle?
Well, it was a bit infuriating, of course, because if you think about that time, our neighbouring city, Manchester, all of a sudden starts to get all the attention. You know, I mean, we'd had it with like the Bunnymen, the Teardrop Explodes, and Flock of Seagulls, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark. Frankie Goes to Hollywood, obviously in the mid 80s, owned like the world, you know. And then so it was kind of like, I think they're quite faddish, the music press and the music business, and then Liverpool is kind of like was put on the kind of back burner really, and it was all about Manchester, you know, and then it all went baggy, as we said, you used to say then, and we started doing like, you know, drum beats and like it was the beginning of like acid house and dance music, you know, which, you know, like, you know, acid house and dance music is there, and I'm like here. You know, no, I don't dislike it. Well, actually, I don't like it. It's not for me. But you know, it's like I respect everybody who makes music. But it was like I've always been very kind of organic, and you know, so all that anyway, all happened then with the Stone Roses and then Happy Mondays, and then I don't know. It all seemed to be very much about if you were in Manchester, you know, it was going to happen for you. So it was quite frustrating. And also, I mean, we had a very few near misses. We were getting airplay in Europe, but we weren't in this country. We had a record in this country and no airplay, and we had airplay in Europe and no record, you know. You know, and this is a very, very common story you'll find with a lot of bands. At that time, there's like a three-pronged attack, you know. You had to have your media covered, you had to have your distribution covered, and you know, and you had to be out playing, you know, as well. And as if you are on an indie label, it's very, very hard to coordinate everything like that when, you know, the corporations could just go boom, you know, bang, there you go, there's your team for that, there's your team for that. And so so there was a lot of frustration around, I'd say, but also an awful lot of incredible, you know, talent as well, you know. Lots of great guitar bands around still, you know. Of course, that all caught back on in the kind of mid-90s, and you know, with the Britpop thing, didn't it? You know, so you know, but the Lars really kind of reminded people of what, you know, we loved really, and it had all got a bit indulgent in the 80s as well, and it was all got very kind of overproduced. And I always say that I think that the producers started having more power than the bands. Whereas before then, it was the bands who had the power, and the producers were there to serve the bands, you know. They were there to manifest those guys' idea, you know. Perfect one of all, of course, would be George Martin in the 60s, who did it, you know, perfectly. But you know, all of a sudden you weren't going to get on the radio unless this producer had done it and it sounded like this, and you had, you know, this kind of gear, and it was done in this studio with this producer. And so, you know, really narrowed down a lot of, you know, funneled out a lot of like kind of great bands, really. I've seen so many people go to the wall, you know, very talented people just go like, you know, I can't be bothered with this. I gotta, you know, put some bread on the table, you know.
We're finding that at the moment with a lot with this COVID stuff. A lot of bands are just right. That's it. Go get a job. It's been tough.
It's so sad. You know, the most rotten thing about it of all, though, is like, I think after the arms industry, I'm pretty sure this is true. Music is this country's biggest export, you know. And it's huge. It's something we do exceptionally well in this country. And most bands I know in Liverpool, my son's in one. I know all his mates. You know, they're struggling to get a packet of strings together half the time, you know, for the guitars. You know, and they should be getting funded like the arts are down in London, you know. You know, in fact, you know that, you know, what percentage of Arts Council funding goes to London and how much goes to the rest of the country.
I can imagine it's.
Guess.
Oh, I couldn't even imagine. Go on. What is it?
It's in the region of 85% stays within, you know, the M25, and 15% gets out. So they, you know, and I know it's the capital city and it should get more and stuff, but You know, all that money, that's taxpayers' money. You
Yeah.
know, everybody should have, you know, a respected kind of maybe state-funded venue, which gives young bands opportunities alongside bigger names who've broken through already, you know. And,
Yeah.
you know, there should be some kind of leg up mechanism which works, because it's murder. It's absolutely murder, you know, as you know.
We all know. So you set up a label, didn't you, as well? Did you set up a label in the late 90s? Viper, was it? Viper label.
Right. Yes, that's right.
And how do
And,
you,
you know,
is it still,
well,
is it
yeah,
still,
it's still going. It's kind of this year we'll probably release close on our 150th release. You know,
wow.
now
Amazing.
you know I know I don't look like a record mogul, like,
But
and I'm not one.
do you find that
Sorry.
the independent label scene is tougher than it's ever been?
Well, yeah, I mean, another thing, what happened there in '99, it kind of, you know, had a family by then, you know, and so the whole band and going out on the road wasn't really kind of compatible with, you know, and luckily I had my artwork to you know, bring in an income by that time, which was just mad. You know, the thing that you put your energy least into start, you know, takes off, you know. It's a very strange world. But the so by the time we'd had a family, had written all these songs quietly while the kids were in bed, so I wouldn't wake them up. And Paul Hemmings, who was, you know, had been in the Lars, an old friend anyway, and in the Onset with us, and he said, why don't we do an album of your acoustic stuff, and we'll release it ourselves. So we formed a Viper label to release it, and it was a very kind of I suppose the word would be pastoral, um, gentle acoustic album, and it was received very well in the press. You know, it did pretty good for our first release, and then we had a template then. You know,
Yeah.
oh right, that's what you do. You know, you get, you know, a product, and then you get a distributor and a manufacturer, and you try and do what you can with the press and with you know, radio or whatever you can, sending it out, mail out,
Yeah.
and and then after that we released the Lars demos, which I'd had in a box for 13 years, you know, and it was so stupid being there, you know, and so we got Lee on board to help us select it, and it was like having two men off, you know. It was just like, it got very tricky, but you know, eventually we managed to get it out, you know, and then that did pretty good, and that set us up then for like a year or two, and then we just put it into like other projects. You know, we released Arthur Lee and from Love with Shaq, which was a live tape that we had, and we did started to release like kind of early, very rare kind of 1950s sci-fi rockabilly, which was all to do with flying saucers and the arms race, you know, and the beginning of nuclear wars and all that, you know, and monsters and B movie stuff. Helped with Steve Hardstaff, who'd done all the artwork for Probe and all the artwork for Eric's, and he'd had a career in music before he came to Liverpool in the early 70s. He'd done Led Zeppelin 3. He'd done like the Strawbs, first ever triple gatefold sleeve. He'd done all kinds of stuff. He's an absolute legend. He lives in Port Sunlight now. I get his book called Cover Versions. It's fantastic.
Oh,
but
right, okay.
So he'd done this album called Jukebox at Eric's, which was you know, a lot of kind of reissuing unknown, kind of really rare 7-inch kind of rockabilly, rock and roll, rhythm and blues music, and with Roger Eagle, and that acted as a template as well. You know, we thought, okay, yeah, we'll start issuing this stuff because people deserve to hear it. You know, and then we did a horror album, a Halloween album, and we started theming them. We did a carnival, wedding one. God, so many different ones. The favorite one of them was a chicken album we did.
What?
And every track on it is about chickens. Yeah. All from like 1950s and before, kind of great songs, just crazy stuff. And my favorite review I think that we've ever got was for that album from Mojo, who said probably the best chicken themed collection you'll ever hear.
Hey, it doesn't get better than that. It doesn't get better than that.
You know, my work here is done.
Yeah, I'm peaked. I was talking about, because obviously you've got some Captain Beefheart stuff knocking. Where's that come from? Because that's kind of really psychedelic-y, off the wall stuff. It's really.
And that ties right into Roger Eagle again, because he knew Don Van Vliet is Captain Beefheart, and he had various bands, but he was the kind of central figure in that band, and they were absolutely unique. You know, so unique. Touch them really, and you either got it or you didn't. It depends what album you get first. If you go in on Trout Mask Replica, it's just too much for some people. So I'd say go for like Spotlight, not maybe Spotlight Kid, a Clear Spot, or Safe as Milk. Those two albums are fantastic. It's very accessible, classic psychedelic rock, and great soul music as well. And so Roger Eagle knew him. He brought him over to play in 1981 at a weirdest place in St. John's Precinct called Rotters Club, right? And I remember people saying, you should go and see this guy, but I didn't have enough money to go and see him. You know, I couldn't go. I was I couldn't go and afford to see this guy. Like, you know, I would have, you know, begged if I knew what I was missing. But then the next night, you know, the funny thing was the next day, I'm at St. Helens Art College, and I go up with my mate to see a Wyndham Lewis exhibition in Manchester, and accidentally bump into Captain Beefheart in the foyer, and meet him and have 20 minutes talking with him, and that changes my life. So I got the real good show, you know. Yeah.
What was he like?
He was absolutely phenomenal. Everybody who meets Don has their own story, and they're all mad and they're all true. And he was just sitting in the corner by himself with this big kind of almost like fedora or gangster hat on, and this suit, and he was swearing at his notebook. He was going, motherfucking shit, fuck, doing all this. I just thought, I've got to speak to that guy, you know. I went over to him and said, can I have a look at your drawings, you know, your sketch pad? And he went, yeah, sure, you know. And then he said, I said, are you an artist? And he said, yeah. He said, but I do music as well. So I said, I'm a musician as well. And he went, I know.
Oh, right.
You know.
Wow.
And I went, how do you know? And he said, I'm psychic. And then it went on from there, you know, and we really hit it off. And he was absolutely lovely fella, and he had loads of time for us. I was only 19, and it was on Halloween, actually, 1980 or 81 maybe. No, 80, I think it was, 1980. And so then I kind of had this weird thing where I'd met this guy, and I was really incredibly taken with him, his dynamism.
Yeah.
And then the next day I go into college, like, and my mate Kev, who's been with us, went, look at this, and he's on the front page of the NME, you know. dude we met in the, like, you know, in the art gallery, you know. So then I read the interviews even before I'd heard his music, and I loved his interview, and it was just very much kind of speaking the truth. It was about animals. It was about, like, you know, Van Gogh being the sanest man who ever lived. It was about, like, all this red kind of deep philosophy, but it was all very kind of childlike, a little bit kind of mischievous as well, which I really liked. And and then a month or two later, I was in a second-hand shop in Tubrook, and just going through the records, and there was a record in there, and I pulled it out. It didn't have a sleeve of any type, not even a white. It was just sleeve, and it just said "Clear Spot," Captain Beefheart and his magic band. And I thought, that's that fella I met who I thought it was great. I'm going to take that home, and I got it for 30p. I stuck it in the cover of another record, and put it on, and it was just like, whoa, this is what it's all about. So I'd say Clear Spot is always my go-to record as an intro with Don and his music, because it's fantastic. Some beautiful, accessible, some of his most accessible stuff on that, like Too Much Time, Her Eyes Are Blue, A Million Miles, My Head Is in My Only House Unless It Rains. And then it's got some really kind of far out psych rock on, like Big Eyed Beans from Venus and Low Yo-Yo stuff and Sun Soon Spark, and really great album. Yeah.
I suppose
so. That was so. I mean, I'm sorry, I've gone all the way around the houses here, because what you were saying was you released some Captain Beefheart stuff.
Yeah, well, that's always
yeah. So anyway, that gig that I didn't go to, which Roger Eagle put on, he taped, and he'd given me via a friend a copy of it, you know, Captain Beefheart live in Liverpool through the desk, you know.
Whoa.
And it was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. So we'd done a couple of the sci-fi albums, the Arthur Lee album. We'd done kind of, don't know if we'd done a Liverpool comp by then. Some of the, you know, the post-punk bands that we did a few compilations of that as well, called Unearthed. But then we thought, right, you know, this tape came out. I found it and went, oh my God, look at this! This is fantastic, Lex. You know, so Paul, who kind of manages the label, got in touch. Well, tried to get in touch with Don Van Vliet, who'd long gone off the radar, like, you know, the radar station. well. And he was like living in the Mojave Desert, painting, you know, having a really nice life at the time, outside the music business, and not getting ripped off or not having to, you know, he was a creative, you know, force, you know. He was always creating, so it may as well be painting without all the bullshit, the music with all the bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
So we couldn't get in touch with him, you know. So we decided that we'd just like release it, and he'd get the publishing anyway on it, you know, from the mechanical royalties and all that. And you know, it's too good not to be out there. And on the morning that it was released, or about to be released, John Peel played someone else had released it. Yeah, which was mad. It's just like absolutely just crazy. And it was another Liverpool label from Over the Water, and we didn't think he'd done a very, very good job of it. It stopped every track instead of, you know, going into a proper mastering studio and cutting out some of the tuning and editing it together, so it was like a performance of being at a gig. It faded out every track, you know, and it was all like done quite a bit haphazard. So we thought, you know, we did a bit of research. We found out there was loads and loads of live recordings of Captain Beefheart in the UK. So we did Captain Beefheart live in the UK, which was from about like the mid 70s to 81, his last tour, and then eventually we did Captain Beefheart live in the USA as well. And both those albums have come out now, respectively, on 12-inch vinyl through the label as well.
Wow.
But Don, you know, he couldn't get in touch. You know, when we did our album, the guy who'd done the crappy album phoned up Paul, the label, and went, "I've spoken to Don, and you've got no permission to do this." Paul just took great delight in shooting him down in flames because he knew it was impossible to get to. You know, really, you know, and so you know, yeah.
But like him, yeah. you obviously have art is your passion now, and sculpture takes the main focus. One of the famous ones you did, did you do the Lenin sculpture in Liverpool, yeah. In the Cavern Walks? Yeah. You did the sculpture. What was that for the anniversary?
That was 2010,
right,
for what would have been John's 70th birthday. Right. And it was a lovely thing to be asked to do, you know. And I put my heart and soul into it, tried to do them as much justice as possible, you know. And it's still hanging there now, although the Cavern Walks has been sold and I don't know who's got it. And but what I like about that sculpture is it's actually hanging. Somebody's told me it might have even been Mike McCartney. That's where the stage was. You know.
Wow. Okay.
You know, because you know it was all kind of cellars and stuff, and where the Cavern is now is a step to the side of where you know originally it was, which was in Cavern Walks. Yeah. So to me, it's like this beacon which is still radiating out all this kind of positive vibes across the world. You know.
Energy but art is massive in Liverpool, but there's some amazing art schools and some fantastic young artists in the city. Do you think the city pushes enough art? Do you think it could do more?
Well, you know, number one, I don't live in Liverpool anymore, right? So I'm not really qualified to say, but I mean, I was, you know, I did live there for over 50 years.
Yeah.
And
I think you're qualified.
I was active there for a very, very long time. I think it does, like most cities, what it can, you know, and the fact that Liverpool had the biggest cuts of any other city tells you all you need to know about where Liverpool features in the priorities of the Conservative government, you know.
Absolutely.
Not that we're going to get into politics at all. But, you know, that if you're talking about music, the two are intertwined in that, you know, and you can't really, you know, it's like what I was saying before about the Arts Council funding and that, you know, that's just the way it is. And the only annoying thing is when something breaks through out of its own volition, some fantastic spark of genius, everybody jumps on its back, you know, and wants to claim credit for it. You know? But hey ho, that's whatever thus, you know.
And were you part of the Lambanana thing? Did you do anything with the Lambananas that were?
Yeah, I did do a few of them, and I worked with the ITV Granada prize winner for the one that was the show that won the competition, who actually did win the competition.
I didn't enter it on the false pretense.
The funny thing is, he's got one in his back garden.
I've got one right here.
Look at
this. Look at this one's massive. Look at this one.
That's
I'm not
nice.
taking any credit for that one. So it's heavy. That's a full concrete job.
Yeah. Actually, the guy who made the original suit for Lambanana was Andy Small, who's one of my friends from Huyton, Notty down by Roby that way. He was commissioned to actually make that, and you know what? He made it with this assistant. I remember it was in Garston. He had a studio workshop there, and it's huge, it's bigger than this room, you know, and the Japanese artist, I forget his name now, who asked him to do it, gave him a maquette, which is like a little mock-up, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like this big. It was this big. And he'd given him this scale to make something this big, but it was tiny. Wow. The original was tiny.
Oh, it's amazing. I love all these little stuff you hear, and then because people just see them as massive Lamborghini. And they were crazy. They took the city by storm, and that was a good thing for the art. You know what I mean? It did. And the Capital of Culture year, it did a lot for the arts in this city, and hopefully it can move. But have you been doing much in the lockdowns yourself, artistically, with this?
Well, I've written a few. I had the best part of a new album to go before I left Liverpool in 2016, you know, with the Shady trio. So I had a lot of the songs already recorded in practice room recordings, you know, and I've still got that. And I've written, you know, not many since I've been here, but I do like the ones that I've written because they've come out, because they've had to come out, you know. So probably written about another 6 probably in the last few years. So it's not something which is like I'm currently working greatly on, but it's always there. It's a part of me, but it's like I have to feel inspired or be triggered about something, you know, before I can actually do it, you know. And, you know, I've just been living the life out here. Just been doing up the house, put my energies into other things and enjoying life and walking.
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
You know, being very, very fortunate to have done that, especially during these times. You know, it is not lost on me how good it is for your mental health and stuff to actually be in nature when your lives are constricted. You know, because you know. So I've been very fortunate.
Your Instagram's very good. You obviously go on some beautiful walks, and I've seen, and it looks quite sort of a relaxing kind of place where you're living now, and with nice walks, fresh air, green space. It's what you want. It's what you want.
Well, I mean, I'm still doing my art, but a lot of that has dried up because I had another. Thing that I do for an income is I do art workshops, you know, recycled art workshops with like school groups or community bases and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And all that's of course dried up because of COVID and stuff. So, but I'm actually working on a commission which I started today, which I'm really glad about. Well, I started installing it today. I've been preparing it for the last few weeks, which is a shop window in Llandudno, which is I've been commissioned to dress as and create this world, you know. So I'm using a lot of my recycled sculptures and making it kind of crazy ass sci-fi kind of seaside thing going on, you know. With flying saucers and tin rockets and robots and tin fish and seahorses and stuff, you know, just like. You know,
well, we look forward.
So. Yeah, I'm really enjoying doing it.
We look forward to seeing it, don't we, Sam? And I tell you one thing I need to show Sam, and when I'll later on, I'm going to send him some Captain Beefheart records.
I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic having you on, Mike. It's been an absolute pleasure, so thank you so much. We are coming to the end of this podcast. But I've just got one last thing. At Everton making top 4?
After watching Chelsea the other night, they were kind of a level above us, you know, and I think that it might be too early, but you know, it didn't mean that I didn't put my best on at the beginning of the season. You know?
Well, let's just say me and Chris are Liverpool fans, so we are not happy with this season so far, but there we go.
There's someone in there who's absolutely ecstatic like you, Mike, at the moment. She's made up. She said she now actually fancies Carlo Ancelotti as well. I said you didn't fancy Sam Allardyce, did you?
He's a cool dude. Oh my coffee.
Brilliant. Mike, again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. For those that want to follow you on social media or want to know what you're up to in the future, where's the best place for them to find you?
Probably the internet.
Yeah.
That'll do. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been the See Live podcast to Mike and to Chris. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you
That's been another edition of the See Live podcast. We'll see you real soon for another edition with another fantastic guest. You keep pulling them in, Chris. Absolutely fantastic. In the meantime, folks, stay safe. Good night and God bless. Bye-bye.